Library Board of Trustees meeting for March. I almost said April. Here we are. Let's get the meeting started with our roll call, please.
Chairperson Knight.
Present.
Vice Chair Olivas.
Present.
Trustee Lucas.
Present.
Trustee Markle.
Present.
Trustee Nichols.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to public comment, the first public comment period for this meeting. Anybody? Anybody who wants to talk about library items can come. If you have something that's off the agenda, I suppose that would be public comment too. Going once? Going twice? All right, please.
Hello. This is Joy Holt, the library director for the record. I just want to introduce everyone to Sarah Martell, our new deputy director. So Sarah is here for her first board meeting. However, this is not her first board meeting ever. She is a former records manager at the state library. So she's it's old hat to her to be appearing at board meetings. So anyways, so yeah, I just wanted to take this time during public comment to introduce you. And if you want to stay for the rest, right on. If not,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Stay and listen, see how it goes. But
All
thank you.
right.
I'm so excited.
Thank you, welcome. Any other public comment? Seeing none, let's move on. Agenda item 3, approval of previous meeting minutes. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at these minutes? Any clarifications?
Chair Balderson, Joy Holt again for the record. We actually I put these in here with hope that they would be completed, but they
They're not.
aren't. So
I thought it just
we'll
was-
have to, can we table that?
So Mihaela Niagos, Deputy District Attorney for the record. Just to make sure that we have a record clear in regards to compliance with the open meeting law pursuant to NRS 241035. A public body shall approve the minutes of a meeting within 45 days after the meeting or at the next public meeting of the public body, whichever occurs later, and unless good cause is shown. My understanding is that the minutes have not been provided because of staffing issues and the fact that the previous meeting occurred on February 22nd. With the understanding that the minutes for the February 22nd meeting will be provided at the next meeting, which is on April 11th. That will still be within 45 days, which is required under the statute. But also because these meetings were so short, I think there is good cause to allow for additional time for those to be provided. And we should have those for approval for both meetings at the next meeting.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Deputy District Attorney. Let's move on. Item 4 for possible action. 4A is the discussion of this letter to the State Library under the Nevada Department of Administration requesting that we restore that collection development money in the State Library and Archives budget when they build the budget, the executive budget for next legislative session. So that's included here. I think we've got, we've got that right after. Well, you have two things here. You have, it looks like the past one, and then you have a draft right behind it for what we would be approving or editing here under this agenda item. Okay, so this is really handy to have both of these right side by side. Let's take a look.
Joy Holt, for the record, you will see that they look a little bit similar, but I did tweak some things and add just most current information. And I took some things out, but they look very
Mentions of
similar at the
COVID and
onset.
things,
Yeah,
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 Things that are less contemporaneous than they were back then.
yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
But the law hasn't changed.
Right, yeah, so it still says we want materials. Let's just take a sec. Are we asking them to increase funding, or are we asking them to meet their obligation under NRS? Both.
Yeah, both, because in there I say, and it's true, that no Nevada library has received more than 25% of the funds allowable to them per the statute in over a decade. So we are allowed up to, I think it's like 25,000. I didn't put that in here. Because of spending more than $150,000 on our collection development or our book budget, but we receive, that's less than 25% of what we're entitled to, obviously. And this 11,551 actually, and I didn't put this in here, it actually includes our portion of the one-shot money over this next 2 years. So it's actually, but I don't have a number. I can't say, well, this was the number we received in fiscal year 24. This is what we would have had. So yeah, they are not. We're so.
I feel this is very polite. Would we want to call that out? We're not actually. Yes, we're asking for an increase, but we're asking them to increase to their statutory obligation. We're not asking them to go over what's already.
No.
So.
And I need to get confirmation on this, but and Trustee Markle, you might have some information on this too, but it's my understanding that, so every year we have to provide, or the state library requests that we provide a total to them of what we spend on our databases beyond what they pay, what they pay for as part of their obligation to match what the Library Services and Technology Act gives the state. And it's my understanding how they're meeting that match is by taking those amounts that each library spends on their databases and adding it to what they've contributed to meet that match.
Yeah.
So
That's what
our
makes it up.
expense, the amount that we spend on our databases is helping them to meet their match.
Right.
And yet we're not seeing any ROI on that
Mhm.
because they're still not providing us with the amount that we're entitled to per the statute. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Am I wrong, Trustee Margot?
You are not wrong. It's a little, it's a little sleight of hand,
Mm-hmm.
but that is how they work it. Nevada, I think, has had, I don't want to say trouble, but has had issues meeting that match for several years.
Yeah.
And they do use what the individual libraries are spending as part of saying the state is contributing so much to that.
Well, state as in public dollars that aren't federal dollars that are being expended, so state, but not like state government authority, yeah.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, what it
creative.
boils down to is the state is not meeting their match, which means that, yes, we
With
are
state funds,
asking
yeah.
them to increase the budget.
Yeah.
It's this very roundabout way,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, that is what we're asking them to do is increase the budget because and meet their match on their own. Without, I don't have a problem. I'm fine with turning over what we spend on databases. I'm absolutely happy to make that contribution. But when we're doing that so that the state can receive funding, and then, I mean, at the end of the day, the state's still not providing what they're expected to provide per the statute.
Right. And it is a little concerning to me to look at the first letter and it says there was an allocation of $7,858. And on the second letter, there's an allocation of $11,551. At first glance, if you don't look much beyond that, it's a $4,000 increase, which, sounds, that makes sense.
Well,
I mean,
it's
it
good-
doesn't
it-
make sense in terms of the percentage, but
Yeah.
just the fact that, oh, so you got $4,000 more, so what are you complaining about?
That's the Christmas tree money?
It is, and then
Okay.
I would also say that that increases due to one-shot money. And I'm happy to include the amount that we actually received last year that didn't include the one-shot money, which was really only like a $1,500 bump, which is about what we average every year. So not a significant amount, particularly when you consider that our users' needs have changed drastically and the electronic resources that they now want to use are much more expensive. And that's a whole other ball of wax, right? That was the conversation last week or last meeting. I was like, I couldn't remember. So yeah, I would say also, let me just pull up because I don't remember the date of the initial letter, but it was a while ago. It had to have been at least,
January?
yeah, so it was 2022. So it was 2 years ago. So there's 2 years of state collection development money that's not included in the total that I gave. Does that make sense? So the $11,551 not only includes the one-shot money, but it's also 2 years of funding that's not mentioned in my draft. So I'm happy to include that. Like, this is what we got this year. This is what we got the following years. This is what we got in 23. This is what we got in 24. And does that make sense?
Yeah, but what you got in '22, does that also include some extra money? I mean,
No.
And that only includes 1 year? Or that would include 2 years also?
No, it's 1 year. So the state collection development funds are dispersed once every year. And we received 7858 in 2022. And in 2023, we received 90 something, because we're going fiscal years here. Federal fiscal, so it's even more confusing. And then this year for fiscal '24 is when we saw that bump, but it's actually a bump from 99,000, something that was very similar to this, like 9,500. I'm guesstimating. So we didn't see a significant bump between 22 and 23. We did see a bump between 23 and 24 because of that one-shot money. So I could be more clear about that. But at the end of the day, it's still a significantly less amount than what we are entitled to per the statute.
So, oh, sorry, Trustee Lucas. So what if we don't talk about the dollars that we got? What if we talk about we were entitled to this percent and we saw this percent? I mean, would that be a more dramatic impact while also maybe not making people go, but you got $11,000?
I don't know. I mean, that's a tough call because we're sort of hedging as to what the legislators want to hear. And folks who are in finance, it's been my observation that they want firm numbers. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I hear your point. Like, I am a person who would have been most like, oh, they didn't get, the percentage thing would sway me.
Right, what if we say we got this dollars, which was this percent, but we should have been entitled to this bigger percent? Because then it gives it a benchmark. I feel like when I look at this and I see this 11,000, whatever, 511, like compared to what? Relative to what? Like it doesn't have any context to make me understand, is that a little, is that a lot? How much is that falling short of what it could be?
So you could say one more sentence after that, where you said the library received an allocation of $11,551 for fiscal year '24 as a state collection development grant aid award. This amount represents X percentage of what it could be statutorily
Yeah, or
entitled
something
to,
like that. I mean, it
or
just
what-
feels
you
like
know,
it's floating in space,
maybe
but
one more.
it doesn't have context to
Sentence,
like
yeah.
make it.
Yeah, and
know
this
that
is
that's
also
actually very small.
tricky because we're submitting this to the state library. We're submitting this to the Department of Administration's administrator, not necessarily to legislators. We're basically asking him to help us to fight the good fight for more
Right.
funding.
Which might be helpful because when they build the budget, and if you are showing an increase, typically the question comes back from your budget analyst.
Yeah.
So why? And so having letters and things that are like, because they're asking for it. Your stakeholders are literally asking for it is why. So
It's like just from my
I
own
like the
personal
idea.
understanding, if we got the max, which obviously hasn't happened in over a decade, but like, what would that dollar be? Like, how much would that be? Like, that gives me some context for what $11,000 actually means.
It would be a
know what I
minimum
mean?
of 25,000,
So,
and beyond that, it's a percentage.
right.
Yeah.
So this represents like less than half of what we're statutorily obligated
Yeah.
or entitled to or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, I don't understand the nuances of playing with the legislature.
Yeah.
But I
even go
do
into
just
them
like
yet,
from a
yeah.
bystander perspective, that 11,000 doesn't, it just doesn't have enough context for me to understand. Is it a little? Is it a lot? How close is it? You know, it's just floating in space.
Gotcha.
Could we wordsmith one more sentence there and have a draft back?
Yeah.
Or actually, gosh, that puts it till April to send the letter.
I mean, I'm not going to die on this hill. It's not that important. I just,
It makes
like
point.
saying, like,
I mean, I'm happy to get as granular as we need to on the dollar amount. I have that information, but I was also my logic. Well, I think you can see my logic. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to get more. I was trying to be very soft about the fact, like,
Right.
hey, y'all are giving us what we're entitled to, because that verbiage doesn't make anyone really want to stand up and help.
Well, you also don't want anyone to say, well, you should be glad for what you got.
Right.
I mean, it's a tricky,
Yeah.
tricky thing because
Yeah.
I know when I was working in the library, it was clear that legislators, particularly legislators and maybe administrators too, but particularly legislators don't want to hear what happened in the past. It's like, well, so you got a lot of money in the past, but now's not the past. We're dealing with now, and there's only so much money to go around. And I think that Julie or Trustee Balderson is, or is it Knight? I can't remember
It's
now.
fine. It's fine. It's fine. I will answer to anything, really.
That oh, now I think I've lost my train of thought. That to be clearer, I don't think it's going to be good to say we deserve up to 20. We deserve at least a minimum of 25,000 because that's clearly not going to happen. But I think showing a progression, as Trustee Lucas mentioned, does have some merit. A progression from 22.
And the potential backfire being, oh, why does the statute tie us to a dollar amount? Let's just go revise that statute. Like, I mean,
Well, does it tie us to a dollar amount? I mean, it says 25%.
No, it does. But what I'm saying is of that dollar amount that we were entitled to, and of the dollar amounts that other libraries were entitled to per the statute, none of us have received more than 25% of what we are entitled to, regardless of what we spent on our book budget or collection.
so by calling out that they've not followed the law, then the option is to, well, let's change the law. So we're following it.
Yeah,
Or-
I mean, that's,
right?
yeah, it's very tricky, which is why, but this was a draft, so.
No,
you know,
I like
you
it. I'm
start
actually
out
okay
soft.
signing off on it today. I mean,
I'm sorry, this is
nuanced and very wordsmithy at this point, but
Trustee Nichols for the record. Before I forget, my last name is spelled wrong on it, so
Oh.
we'll change my last name. I didn't notice that
I
last time.
apologize.
It's okay.
COVID brain.
And I was just looking at my phone to make sure I don't say something that's confidential, but it's not confidential. It's out there in the public. We had our, the beginning of the budget kickoff for us. And the governor has put out his 3-year strategic plan, which is on his website, so it's not confidential. And this is going to someone who's sitting on his cabinet, that's why I'm mentioning this. Part of his 3-year strategic plan really hits a lot of things that the library does. And I'm thinking in the beginning, you might want to mention that the Carson City Library aligns with the governor's 3-year strategic plan when it comes to education and workforce development. And you can talk about what the library, I think, a little bit stronger when it comes to helping people look for jobs and the education part. And I think that might get his attention because he does sit on the cabinet and the governor is pushing his cabinet. At least we've been told if we have BDRs, they have to align with the 3-year strategic plan.
Okay.
And so just put that out there.
so if Joy were to go find out on the governor's website, she could probably pull some verbiage that is applicable to the library and throw that in the introduction, is what it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if you actually go to, and I can try to email it to you tomorrow, but it's on the governor's Office of Finance on their website. If you look at the upcoming biennium, you got to go through.
I'm familiar with
links,
that website.
unfortunately.
I'm trying to find stuff there.
I know, and I'll show it. I'll send it to you
Okay,
tonight
thank
if I
you.
can.
Yeah, I'm happy
it's-
to show how we, at the Carson City Library specifically, are aligned with that. Because judging from what you're saying, that's absolutely, we could give a laundry list, and I'll talk a little bit more, even more about what we're doing with workforce development, hopefully. So, yeah, I'm happy to do that. I think that hopefully this will, because again, this is to get the administrator, the Department of Administration's administrator, or the Nevada State Library and Archives Public Records Administrator to help and be involved. For lack of a better phrase, to
Actually put it in their budget and
yeah.
defend it to the department and then to the governor's office.
Right.
Yeah.
To help go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not as if we can't do it on our own. And I've had a few, Lisa Krasner said, anything you need from us.
Oh,
It's because she came to the library for the Imagination Library launch.
nice.
And I said, well,
So you know.
that might happen. So yeah, I thought it was great that she extended that offer, and so I'm sorry about your last name, Trustee Nichols. I'm usually on it, but March was kind of a loss for me. February, March.
Yeah,
I've
we're
been a
only
mess.
halfway through March. Don't call it yet.
How long am I going to be able to ride the COVID brain train?
Okay, so we have, I think that's pretty good feedback. Any other feedback for Joy? Do you want to return with the draft in April?
Okay.
Does that sound good to everybody? Okay.
And my suggestion is not anything I'm married to. I defer to people with more knowledge in this area.
No, it's good. I think, those, the other feedback and comments also warrants a revision on your draft, and we're going to make a revision anyway, so.
Well, and I think it's good to have that outside perspective because a lot of the legislators aren't going to know what we're talking about either. I mean, they
weren't
are
there when the
yeah.
law was passed. I don't.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, well then we'll just request that you come back with a revision next meeting.
Okay.
And then we can move on to agenda item 4B. Discussion possible action concerning process by which the annual unclassified job performance appraisal for our library director will happen. So we have to do this by June. We want to put it on the June meeting, right? Is that the idea? May? We want it for May, don't we?
May would be
May's better.
best,
Okay.
just so because the HR gets just bombarded with the unclassified performance appraisals at the end of June, because anyone who is unclassified has their evaluation date is due July 1. So it's definitely helpful to them if the sooner we can get it in.
Okay, so we're going to shoot for May 9th meeting to do Joy's eval. Does that work for everybody?
That's where we discuss the one that's all written up and everything,
Yeah.
correct? And approve it, like
Yeah.
the final version.
That would be the time for that one. So if we're shooting for May 9th, then we would want to engage, I can't remember their name, the people who do the 360 eval, the third-party independent.
Pool pact.
And how much time did we give staff to do responses last time? I can't remember. Was it a month?
I think so. Do we want to do that? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but last year there was some
Yeah, we had-
discussion about
if we felt like it was useful feedback or not. I like it, but I realize I could be in the minority there.
I mean, I could see how I wouldn't enjoy having to complete it, but I like having the results because we're not hanging around the library on a day-to-day basis as much, we don't have a behind-the-scenes view, so it gives us another perspective.
Right.
think
And I think it was you,
that's
Trustee
useful.
Lucas, that mentioned that the percentages and whatnot aren't necessarily useful. It's the comments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I do really like the comments much more than the rating scale because everybody's got their own opinions on how to apply a rating scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as we saw, I think we've seen every year, not just my evaluation, that someone might say neutral, but then give a comment that's clearly not neutral. So, I mean, I do find the comments very useful as well. Sorry, I'm a cough drop.
I'd
So-
actually completely forgotten about the other scoring part because in my head I was thinking about the comments.
Yeah, the comments are useful, I think.
Yeah.
And I find it.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm if I'm blowing it, I want to know that I'm blowing it from the staff's perspective.
Yeah. So, okay, so I can reach out to Pool Pact. I have a separate folder in my email.
Okay.
What we did last year and all that. Were we happy with the questions from last year? Okay, they're pretty generic. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like it captures enough of management and leadership to give us a good read and to generate good comments. Okay, so then I will be the one to reach out to Pool Pack to get that out, and then we'll ask Joy to notify staff to look for it in their inbox from them. We'll give them about a month to get the responses in. That puts us somewhere probably end of April. And then if that would give like a week or two to compile the responses and have it for the May 9th meeting. And then in addition to that, we also have another form to fill out as trustees. That's more like a normal employee appraisal. And I'm happy to send that out to everybody on email and then compile any responses you have. Just as long as we get those back, by the first week of May.
So
Sound
we're
good?
gonna need to remember to be doing this basically the last week of April. We're gonna get the employee responses and then need to have them turned around to you about a week later so that it can get compiled before our meeting.
Well, I can send you your part
Right.
as soon as I have it.
Right.
If you want to read the comments from the staff and adjust your appraisal comments accordingly, then yeah, you would want to wait. But if you don't and you want to keep them like two different sets, then you, at your convenience, sometime before May, just send it on its way after I send it to you, which, if I'm being honest, isn't going to be till next week. I'm looking at my schedule here and like this weekend's a little much. So I'll probably have that next week to send out to you all. Does that sound okay? We're good with this? Okay, and then Joy, would you extend an invitation to HR for the May 9th meeting so they can be here for
Yes.
your eval?
As it happens, the new HR director is formerly with Pool Pact.
Oh, wonderful. So hopefully familiar. That is good. Okay.
Something's weird with this staff report. It's not showing my link. So I'm going to have to go in and fix that.
Okay.
I'll add that by tomorrow morning.
Okay.
I'm not sure what happened there, but
So you're looking at the next agenda item for your
yeah,
membership
for some
reports, yeah.
reason that when you click
Okay.
on that staff report, it's not pulling anything up linked to the staff report because, my other documents should be down there like attached and they're not. So I will fix that.
Just
I'm
real
not
quick,
sure.
did we have any other discussion on agenda item 4B before we move on? Seeing none. Okay. Okay, just wanted to make sure we're good. All right, well then, yeah, let's move on to item 5A, which is your administrative staff reports. Do you have it elsewhere to put up, or do you want to wait until
Yeah, I can.
afterward, or how do you want to?
I can put it up.
Okay.
Hold on. That looks the same. All right, well, let me just go to the reports themselves because that's, easy enough.
And I don't remember when it was, but it feels like not that long ago. If I can just say for a minute, I'm a little bit off topic here, but I was in the library, and in the breezeway, we had the Philately Society had like their stamps up in the case, and I spent like a solid 10 minutes reading about stamps, you guys.
Yeah. They also did actually it got
It was
canceled,
really
but
nice.
they did a speaking event too.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
shoot.
Yeah, their stamp stuff is really interesting. Yeah.
I didn't think I'd be that interested in stamps, and here we are. So this is one of those fun things that happens when you go to the library. You just suddenly you're into philately. One day you're young and carefree, and Anyway, all right. Well, are you ready? Do you feel okay? Well, then I'll turn it over to you, Director.
Okay. Well, you'll see that there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of percentage between the last time and this time in terms of what we spent. So the contractual services, we'll see a drop in that because I'm going to pay the co-op bill. It's late because our contract from them, there was some going back and forth with the state contracts department. But now I've got to get on the, it has to be approved by the Board of Supervisors, so I need to get on their agenda in order to move forward. And so the co-op is fine with that. But other than that, I would say I did some quick math just to see, and I would say we're very safely on the right track to turn back what I strive to turn back every year, which is about 20 to 25%, just so that we can be contributing to the capital improvement projects fund. And so we're on track with that. I mean, we might be a little bit under 25%, but that's always the goal, to try and contribute to that. And then other than that, everything is pretty much, we're cooking along. The software maintenance, you can see that's weird, but I mean, we're at 93%, but we've pretty much covered and paid for everything that we're going to pay for with that. So we might see a few extraneous expenses, but, and even if we do go over budget, I'll just move money from another budget. We've got plenty of funds elsewhere to move into that budget if need be. As long as we don't break our bottom line, we're fine. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a question on,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Trustee Nichols, for the record. Equipment repair and maintenance?
Mm-hmm. That is for our copy machine. Maintenance on our copy machine that we do a lot of printing on. We contract through the city with a business called UBO, and they provide the machine, and then we pay for them to maintain it. We also pay them beyond whatever, we have a certain amount of printing we can do that's included in that. If we go beyond that, we pay that. It's usually pretty low, but they do provide, they come and maintain it if we need them to. They do routine maintenance, and then also with that expense comes the toner for the machine. And so, it gets a lot of action at the library because we only have one, and it's doing all those color prints. So that's what that is. And that's like a snatch and grab, if you've ever heard that phrase before. That gets all handled behind the scenes by finance.
I'm well aware. As a state budget
Of the
analyst.
snatch and grab. Oh, I didn't. Are you still a state budget analyst?
Yeah.
Oh, I
so
didn't know.
Definitely know what snatch and grab
Oh,
is,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I didn't mean to insult your intelligence.
No, you're not. No, I'm just laughing because, yeah, deal with that all the time.
Anything else? Okay. So you'll finally see that the gift fund, let me get there. The augmentations went through. So I submit those in November. We don't see them until about February. And that's where you'll see that we've received the budget increases from the Friends money. And so you can see where we had some, you'll see there's a deficit in the collection Friends of the Library amount is at a deficit because of that encumbrance. And that encumbrance is based on a purchase order for items that we know we're going to be purchasing we had to submit a purchase order to make sure that we had it all, everything covered for what we're going to purchase from our Baker and Taylor book distributor, book publisher, or vendor. And so that you can see where our year-to-date expenses we're under the 30 grand, but because of that encumbrance, we're showing it a negative. Does that make sense? But eventually that encumbrance will start pulling from the purchase order, and it'll even out. And then with operating supplies, I was really just trying to make sure we had plenty of money to cover what we need to cover. With community programming, that is so that we can pay for any other programming we need to pay for that we've, for like just our other programs. And then with the summer learning program, that's money from the Friends. And you'll see that our budget went up. We haven't begun to use that yet because we haven't purchased for the summer learning program yet. But we will here shortly because we're coming down to the final decisions on the planning. And then from there, we'll go with what we're going to purchase for each of the different programs associated with the Summer Reading Challenge. And then with the Capital City Reads, that number's actually changed significantly since I pulled these reports because we just got all of the books in. And if you're interested, Capital City Reads this year is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amar Tolles. It's great. Yeah, I suggest listening to the audiobook if you do that because the narrator has a very nice posh British accent, which I really like. But I think it's a great book. And so, yeah, I think that we'll have a good turnout for that. And then the digital collection, as you know, that's for our the Friends contribution towards the purchase of ebooks and audiobooks. So we have summer learning program that we $5,000 from the coffers of the gift fund, and then an additional $5,000 for summer reading that the Friends pay for. So anything that $5,000 doesn't cover from the Friends, then we'll dip into the summer learning program amount that came from just our general gift fund donations. And then the community programming is for all of the other programs that we do throughout the year. And then that's that for the financials. Any questions?
What's the undesignated amount in?
That's essentially an undesignated amount of money where I don't really have anywhere to put that. So I could distribute it out through all of these other budgets, but it's also kind of the way that I do it is to keep it out there. We can spend it, but it's also a way for, in my logic, is to keep it out there and not necessarily have to dip into it. So I try to keep what we actually have in the budget available to us conservative. But I mean, it's out there and it's available. But it's also a good way for me to separate out what the Friends have contributed, which has to get spent, and then the undesignated amount, which is all of our other funds that are available to us outside of what are in these line items that you see.
And what happens to it if we've not spent it at the end of the fiscal year?
It rolls forward.
Okay.
Because it's our money. The gift fund is our money that we've received through donations and bequests and things like that. So yeah, it just rolls forward.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me go to my director's report now. Okay, so we are going to be hiring a new shelver, and we have that the posting is open, and it's going to stay open. It's I'm not quite sure what they call it, but it's basically just a posting that will ride until we fill it. And we've gotten quite a few applicants, so we've narrowed it down. And I'm just going to extend. I just need to extend out the invitation for the interviews. And then we also still have one senior library assistant position that has posted. It's closed. And unless they have kept it open, I feel like they might have, which is fine. And then that we've also made our selections about who we're going to interview for that. We just did that earlier this week. And then eventually we'll have to post another library clerk position. Those are easy. The shelver and the library clerk are not as complicated because they're part-time. And so it's we get a certain amount of money, and we can spend it on as many different positions as we want, so long as we don't
spend that, exhaust that budget. So the reason the library clerk position has to be filled is because Sherry Mathis, our existing library clerk, has moved into the administrative clerk position that Sarah's been filling in for since, our previous administrative clerk was Chris Klug, and then we had the Haley Pullen on that we were sharing with the treasurer's office, and then Haley left, and Sarah's just been filling in, and she's doing a great job. But we do need someone in there to take that off of Sarah, because Sarah is going to take over the 2-part approval process that I've been doing. So like, I'm the approver. Therefore I can't do this first. Whomever the approver is can't do the first half of the financials or the AP. And so we needed someone to come in there and take that over from Sarah so that she could then be the approver. I will always be a backup approver, but we were just in a situation where Sarah couldn't continue to do it. Thankfully, Sherry wanted to do it, and I think she's really happy. She actually was going to leave. And I said, well, would you consider this? And she really didn't want to leave, but there were just some other things going on. So we worked it out, and we were able to keep a really awesome employee. And everyone was ecstatic that she got to leave. I mean, we were all just like, oh, a bummer. We just like her so much, and she's great. And then we've still got the workforce development and social services coordinator position that needs to get filled, along with Sarah's circulation supervisor position. That's the librarian position. But I think we're going to post that internally first. We have some folks who've made overtures that they're interested. So we'll see. We always want to try and promote from within if we can. And then these are the things we've got going. The virtual zoo is a hugely fun. And today we had the easiest pie toss because it's Pie Day. And we had about 32 attendees. The 3D pens program. 3D pens are cool. If you have kiddos, stop by because they're just cool. They're these pens that you write with, and they build up and make 3D like images. I'm not doing a great job of describing it, but they're very cool. And then we're also going to have an Easter egg basket build, followed by a couple days later an Easter egg hunt that we had last year in the Secret Garden, and it was super, super well attended and super, like, the kids loved it. And I think we ramped it up this year. I can't tell you how many eggs we had last year, but and they're the little plastic eggs, but we have 500 this year. So, and then of course we've just been doing these scavenger hunts where people come in and they sort of cruise through the library and find clues, and then at the end of this, they're following the end of the rainbow to get to the pot of gold for this one, and then they get like some little chocolate covered gold coins or chocolate gold coins. And people really enjoy it. So last week was National Reading Week, so you can see where our Buzzing Bees people, Rachel March, filled in because Sarah is usually, that's her program with Haley Wilson, but we had to have a meeting, so she had to miss it. But it was really cool because, Rachel's been with us for 22 years, and she used to do story time many, many years ago. And so she filled in and was like, I think I might want to fill in occasionally. Or maybe I want to do this more often. So it's always cool to see when people feel invigorated. And I think it would be great if we could do it on a rotation and have everybody doing programming. I work on the desk. I help with programming when needed because I have to be a backup. So there's none of these programs that I couldn't back up on. I wouldn't be as good as the original programmer, but I could do it. The 2 shattered windows have been replaced. The changing station in the men's restroom broke. So yeah, the janitors came and noticed it was broken. It wouldn't go back up. We didn't know that, and I'm not sure, the facilities supervisor didn't know if the facilities folks took it down or if the janitors took it down. But we came in one day and it wasn't there anymore. And it's because it was broken. So I spoke with the facility supervisor today, just saying, is there any, do you have any suggestions? And he was like, well, maybe get something that will withstand more weight. And I said, they all have the same specs. So, and then I reached out, I had before that, a couple of days ago, I reached out to my folks that I follow on Facebook that were the same people, the same avenue that I tapped for the locked bathrooms. And people were like, get the koala care. They are mounted to the wall. And I was like, our koala care mounted to the wall one is what broke. And the ladies' restroom it's pristine. It's super cool. The one in the ladies' restroom is fine. So they're allegedly supposed to support 200 pounds, but no more, they suggest no more than 50 pounds because the odds are you're not probably changing a baby that weighs more than 50 pounds. But people, who knows? They're putting their stuff on there, probably leaning on it, sitting on it. So I think our only option is to just buy another one and put a sign on there that says, please don't sit on this. Please don't, there's definitely some folks in there that I think they're probably packing around more than 50 pounds in there with their stuff. So I think that's the only thing that we can do. And I'm actually going to order that tomorrow. I think I'm going to get the same one because the only ones that are different are stainless steel. And the only difference between them and the one we have is that the stainless steel is like a facade. It's not any better made or anything like that. The mechanics of it are no different. It's just the look. So it's a $300 difference for the look. And then the safety inspection, I think I told you guys last time that we had some things that needed to be addressed, and they've all been addressed. So the biggest thing that we had to do is move the floor scrubber that the janitors purchased. It had to be moved out of the space that it's in, and we moved it into the maker space because it was blocking a fire panel of controls. And so all the other stuff had to be fixed by facilities. And also we had to get numbers for our building because when we painted the building in, I think 2018, we removed the numbers and never replaced them. So I bought new numbers and
Like address numbers?
yeah.
The-
Yeah, so we're going to have address numbers now, just the number itself on the side of the building where they kind of were before. And facilities will come and put those up. So, but one thing I did want to mention is that I have submitted for review a staff report to go in front of the Board of Supervisors to discuss the possibility, or I'm not quite sure how it works, but if it's over $1, if you're going to accept a grant over, I think, $50,000, you have to go in front of the Board of Supervisors. Well, the Governor's Office of Economic Development has $1.5 million that they'd like to give to us to have a workforce and development professional, aside from the one that we already have, to carry forward the work that they've been doing through the Sandy grant that they received that was like $13 million. So what that would do for us is we would have a dedicated 10 hours from that person to help us build out our workforce and development piece even more robustly. And what we would do is have that person in residence for 2 years. And that staff report includes a scope of work that very clearly lays out what the expectations are of that person in residence. And then that person will also go out, and it's not just for Carson City Library, it's for the entire state. Carson City would be the fiscal agent, in addition to us getting additional time from that person to help us build out and we'd be one of 2 libraries in the state that would be doing it.
So that might be a nice complement to our permanent position, especially because our permanent position is so new.
Yep.
And the first one
Exactly.
didn't work out so well. So,
Well, and
it's exciting. Okay.
we've worked really closely with the project manager, Tammy Westergaard, who spoke last meeting.
Mhm.
We've worked really closely with her with the materials and resources that were made available through the Sandy grant. So this will really just carry that forward. It's interesting. It's not actually federal money. It's state money that the state received from the T-Mobile lawsuit. There was a lawsuit that California, Nevada, and I can't remember the third state joined on for overcharging, I'm super oversimplifying this, but overcharging, T-Mobile was overcharging and they won. And so the Governor's Office of Economic Development, or GOED, went to the state and said, hey, Attorney General's office, would you give us this $1.5 million so that we can, and then we'll subgrant it out. And so they said, yeah. I mean, it was a strange like risk. Like, we were kind of like, will they, won't they? And I actually went to IFC, or the Ways and Means with, IFC, Ways and Means Committee, to present and talk about like what the Carson City Library might be able to do if they were to get the money. And they didn't even hesitate. So, well, one legislator down in Vegas asked a bunch of questions, and at the end said, okay. So now we've got this big pile of money, and hopefully the city will go, yes, that's, it's grant money.
Right.
So
And that just sounds like a budget adjustment, right? So
it's not actually, because
then why do you have to talk to them?
that's their policy. If you have anything, if you're going to take a grant over a certain dollar amount, it has to be presented in front of the Board of Supervisors.
It's an authority thing or it's not an authority thing?
I don't really understand, to be honest with you. And
Okay,
no
no,
one
that's
has been
still
able to
fine.
try to explain it to me. Because I asked the same thing, like, if it's grant money, can
Well,
we just
because
accept
if
it?
you have it, like, if you have a budget, you can't spend over this amount because that's what they approved, and then you get more money on top, you still can't spend it unless they tell you, yes, you can, right?
Right.
Is that the idea, or is there some other, or they just want to know about it?
I think they
or-
just want to know about it.
Okay.
That's the impression that I've gotten from the contracting and other grants. The Public Works grants analyst has been helping me just kind of figure this out, because they also have had some pretty large grants. But ours is more simple because it's not federal money,
Right.
it's state money. So yeah, I think they just want to know.
Okay.
That's the impression I've gotten, because I did ask, like,
The state does the same thing, even with small grants. If
Right.
you get a grant, you have to do a work program.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
and that's what it sounded like, but it's like,
Yeah.
well, work programs for authority for your budget, but if this isn't, then I was just kind of curious, like, what would it be for?
yeah, because
Yeah,
it has
no,
no
Yeah.
it has no fiscal impact.
Right.
Because same
So-
thing, because at the Indian Commission, when somebody offered to, we were going to be their sub, actually, the Department of Education, we were going to be their sub-grantee.
Yeah.
We still had to do a work program.
Right, because you didn't have
So-
budgetary authority from your legislatively approved budget, which that I get that logic.
Yeah,
So
so
I'm like, how does the city work? So
So the city's probably just
curious.
mirroring it.
can I go back to facilities questions for a minute?
Sure.
I
Yeah.
kind of feel like we left on a cliffhanger last meeting around the lighting in the parking lot.
Well, they
Do you
have
update?
fixed it. They moved the lighting around, and we haven't. It's hard to say if if people are satisfied with that because it's better, or just because and it's daylight savings time changeover is pretty recent. But I do know that the flipping of that light that was facing Smiths because of wind did make a significant difference from my perspective, because that was it was that dark corner. And that made a big difference. But it's also, like I said last time, I think it's tricky because they don't want to position it too much toward the exit, because then they're shining the light on the apartment complex across the street, and they've dealt with that already. Like they've gone down that road. So I haven't heard anyone say that it's not effective.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah,
for-
I hate to ask this question,
Mm.
but we just bought this, the baby changing station. We just bought it. It's not
Yeah.
like we've had it for a couple of years and it broke, So I really hate to ask this, but if we buy a new one, is it possible, I'm just throwing it out there, if you could put a lock on that? Since we're not putting locks on the bathrooms, I totally understand. With a little note, ask for the key, and there's a little lock on there. And people men who use it frequently, who bring their kids frequently, will know after a while to ask before they take the kids and ask for the key.
I actually
then
thought
lock
of
it.
that, but I don't know if that solves the problem the gentleman who first brought this to us was having, because his child was having an emergency. And so if he had to then unlock the baby changing station, it would wouldn't really have provided the service that he was looking for, is my thought on that.
I
But
agree, but how often are we going to have that kind of thing versus how often are we going to have to buy a new one because people are putting tons of stuff on it?
How much is the new one gonna cost?
350,
$350.
400, depending.
There's no warranty? on
No. I mean, I can look into buying if it comes up with a protection plan, I can certainly purchase that. I don't recall that though. I don't think they have a warrant. I don't recall there being a warranty offered because of it being, its specific use to be in a public space. So, I mean, I can certainly look into that though. Yeah, because there's no way to, because I thought I'm happy to find a way to fashion a lock on there. But I don't know that, my understanding, I went back and looked at the minutes today too of the gentleman that originally came and spoke about it. So for every choice we make, there's a converse consequence, right? So, yeah.
I feel like that's almost a maintenance thing, like stuff breaks, like, I don't know.
I mean, I'd like
Especially
to.
we don't know what broke it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just something that we will have to just keep an eye on, and we could do a better job of putting out signage like, please don't sit on this. But can we prevent that from happening? No.
Or maybe put a sign on it, because I think a baby station, top of the baby station says, for intended use only.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I
a lot
think-
of people look at that and go, never mind, I'm going to pull it down anyway and put my back back.
Yeah.
Broke was, it was already down and it wouldn't go back up, so it was
Right.
still usable.
It
for
was,
a changing
but it's
surface.
also questionably in violation of ADA because when it's
You can pull it
down,
up to
yeah.
get into the stall. Okay.
yeah. I mean, had they asked me, which they didn't, but had they asked me, I would have said, yes, we can't have it in here because we can't have it in here like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you talk to the company? Did you let them know that their
No.
equipment failed?
I did not.
Well, maybe they would offer you a discount or a new one.
I'm happy to reach out to them and see if I can get anywhere.
Yeah.
Because it's only been like 3 months, hasn't it?
Mm,
I feel like it's been about a
we
year.
Oh, I
purchased
don't think it's
it
been
a year ago.
Was it a year?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a
Just like 10
I know.
months.
It was
10
a
months
s-
ago.
it was a
I thought
spring
the
room
same
in the other
thing.
room.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was how I remembered the time of year was because we were still over in the Bonanza room.
Yeah.
So that's how I was able to like backtrack. But yeah, it was I think June of last year is what I was able to find. So 10 months. Yeah. So if I'm hearing correctly, you'd like me to contact the company and just let them know their stuff failed and then
Yeah.
also see if there's a warranty. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we're not the only public facility that has, people coming in who might have other uses than changing a baby.
Well, it was interesting because when I reached out to colleagues, many people responded with, why would people set bags on there?
Well, right. I mean,
But it's like, well, I mean, to me, it just seems natural that why they would.
Yeah.
if they're taking a bath in the sink, they might put their bags there.
Or they might just put their bags there because they're shuffling through them and changing their clothes or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, my point is that a lot of libraries were shocked that that would even happen. And almost everyone suggested that we consider a koala care mounted to the wall product, which is what we had. So one library director even said, we've had ours for 20 plus years.
But you don't know what
Good
their
on you.
bathrooms look like. If they have other counter space where people
Yeah.
can leave their
Yeah.
stuff versus we
Or if
don't
they're in a
really-
small library that just doesn't have the same
Right.
demographic and things that they're dealing with. Every library is different. So
And the other
yeah.
piece of that too is there are use cases for a changing table for not babies, right? So if you find someone who's using adult underwear liners because that's a need for them, you might, and they have an attendant or someone with them who
Mm-hmm.
helps them with those activities of daily living, you could see that being used. And hopefully
I actually
drive our
looked into an adult
200 pounds.
changing station.
Yeah. into the
And they're
adult.
too big for the space that we have available, but also the lowest amount I could find in cost was 10 grand.
Yeah. Oh, there are a
So-
lot more for, yeah. But
Yeah, I
if
mean,
you have someone who fits the weight limit, though, I mean, that's kind of,
yeah, I mean, that would be the answer in terms of weight limit, but they're just not feasible.
no.
Because I've
Well,
considered
our
it.
bathroom's not feasible,
No,
really. So
no.
that's just kind of.
And we're never, it's not as if we're going to be able to make those bigger. Not really.
Right.
So, I mean, we can change things and make them more, we can
Working
alter
with what you
things,
have,
but
yeah.
the space is the space. And I also asked, I think I told you guys this, but I did ask the facilities folks about getting one of those things that you like, that sort of like comes around and
Mm-hmm.
it streams out and you like, they had them in the bathrooms when I was in grade school where you push the thing
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, you do not want those because they're a massive mess. They just encourage even more like bird bathing and
Oh,
water
interesting.
all over. And I said, okay, well, not y'all's first shot at this, so I'm going to trust your experience here.
So what my brain wonders then is, because I'm always in women's restrooms,
Mm-hmm.
do we have good sturdy hooks in there? Do we have any place for someone to hang their stuff?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we do.
Because I know like women, we're always looking for some place to put our purse. I don't know if men's rooms are as
we
well
do.
equipped.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
We do. But this is, I would venture a guess that there's not enough hooks in there for all the things that need to get, and hung up. And some stuff is just not, that it's not going to hang. So, if we try to stop people, well, we're pretty good at stopping people from pushing their carts and stuff in there, but every once in a while, we
Well,
get some.
it also could be, I mean, you hate to say this, but it could be malicious kids who are bouncing it up and down.
Right.
That's
I
true.
mean, particularly since it wouldn't go back up, to few kids bouncing stuff.
And we've had
and-
some kids that are, we've had to kind of wrangle. And it's interesting that you say that because the fire department came and asked if they could, and we don't have a firm plan on this, if they could come and do some training with new firemen in our building, because our building is a building that would go up fast if it caught on fire. And what also put it on their radar was that there was a library in Northern California, I can't remember where he said, but it burnt to the ground. Not that long ago. And so it put, yes, we should go to some of these public buildings that have a greater risk of sort of just going up in flames quickly. And I said, of course, but he told me that fire happened because of two kids playing with matches in the bathroom and setting like toilet paper on fire. And then it just spread. So, I mean, it wasn't actually the folks that everyone thinks are doing bad stuff. It was teens. So, any other questions for me?
Does that conclude your report?
That's it.
Okay.
We got lots of good stuff coming down the pike, so.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm very curious about the 3D pens. I've seen them. I know what you're talking about, but I'm just like, I wonder, is my 5-year-old gonna, how is she
I
gonna
don't
react?
know.
Right? I
Y-
don't
Maybe
know.
she'll
we'll
have
go
the
find out.
dexterity or not, but you could,
Right? They just layer up. Yeah, they're so cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We're going to close agenda item 5 or 5A. And let's move on to agenda item 6, information only, the board members and announcements, requests for information, next meeting agenda items. I think last time I already asked you what I want to see for May with collective purchasing options. So I'll,
Do you want May or April?
did we say?
May would
Oh,
be
April?
best.
That's right. I'm sorry. I think it's April right now and it's
Yeah.
not. So we're talking about April, right? So
Yes.
we'd be looking at purchasing options.
When you say, I was gonna,
Yeah.
when we do our regular get together, may we discuss this a little bit further to have
Yeah.
a better idea?
How
of-
procurement works for,
Well, and what
buy
you're
things. Yeah.
wanting exactly.
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And then I think that was the only thing I had for next meeting's agenda.
Okay.
Do we have any other items you all want to see on the next meeting's agenda?
Oh, and the updated letter, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
For April. All right, any other announcements from board members or requests? Okay. All right, well then I'm going to move on to agenda item 7, public comments, second round. Anybody for public comments? We're talking to an empty room. Okay. All right, seeing, hearing none, we'll move on to adjournment, and we are adjourned. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.